The Tale of the Dark Cottage. History would call these times the Dark Ages, but it was pretty good life for Bartley McGregor. No less than a year ago he settled down on the farm in Perthshire with his wonderful wife Matildas. He loved her with all of his heart, and in return she gave him a beautiful baby boy by the name of Dolly. Thinking of his family, he was warm and fuzzy. His heart was brimming with pride. Perfect was his life with his wife, child, farm, and little cottage home. It may have been dark times for some, but not for Bartley. He was on the edge of the farm watching the sunset, thoughts of all this becoming little dallies one day distracting him from his aching muscles. Toiling in the field was hard but honest work. He took a deep breath in, and before he could exhale, he heard something. Some sort of whispers from the forest behind him. He looked to the woods and saw nothing. Still he heard faint whispers riding in the chilly autumn wind.
"Hello!"
Bartley yelled into the woods.
I got to be going out of me mind.
Bartley whispered to himself.
"Hello! Is there anyone out there?"
The whispers intensified as he walked into the woods. He's lived here almost a full year. Bartley knew deep down he wasn't one to go exploring into the woods. Sure, he knew the path to get to the creek. He knew where he set up all those bait traps. He knew where to go to cut down some good wood for new projects, like the barn he was halfway to building. Walking past the tree line, Bartley realized he never walked into this part of the forest. It looked all different. He shook off a bit of fear as he stepped deeper into the wood, following the whispers. That's what it was. Soft voices talking, but with no intelligible words. At least none in any language he'd ever heard. They beckoned him deeper into the woods. Bartley stopped yelling back. Clearly, who was ever making these sounds would have heard his booming voice if he could hear their tiny whispers. He stepped into a tiny hill as the voices stopped. He looked around and saw nothing. Bartley breathed a sigh of relief, thinking how silly it was to go walking into the woods like this with the sun going down. Lovely Matildas would have dinner waiting for him when he returned, and probably poked her head out of the cottage a few times to see where he was. As Bartley turned to walk away from the wood, back to the safety of his cottage, he kicked something. Startled, he quickly looked down. To his horror, he saw that he was standing in a fey ring, an elevated bit of earth clear from all vegetation save for some moss. The raised mound was surrounded by more than a dozen golden mushrooms forming a perfect circle. Well, it would have, only Bartley accidentally kicked one.
"Oh my!"
Bartley let out as he tried to push the mushroom back in the spot he knocked it out from. It wouldn't stand back up properly, but he put it down in the same spot gently enough. As he did, he whispered a little prayer to himself. Bartley knew about fey rings. Tales his grandparents told him about the fey folk like pixies, leprechauns, and witches. All creatures of myth that the church would say were now linked to devil and fallen angels. The stories have been around a lot longer than the church, but they were just stories.
"You had me worried sick now, Bartley,"
Matilda said, giving Bartley their child.
"I poked my head out there and didn't see ya. Yeah, you know how I feel about being alone in this cottage when it's dark out." "Oh, loon, what are you going on about? You know Dolly's here to protect ya."
The newborn cooed in his arms as Matildas rolled her eyes at her husband.
Go on, dinner's getting cold."
Bartley set the boy in the crib and returned to the table, despite the infant's cries to be picked up and held a little while longer. His rag and bowl of hot water were there, ready to wash his face and hands before supper. As he did so, he saw Dolly's face change out of the corner of his eye. The babe's face turned gray, while his eyes became large and his ears seemed to grow pointy at the tips. The change was both monstrous and ethereal. Quickly, Bartley turned and looked directly at his son. The child was back to normal. Dolly's flushed face was beet red from shouting for his parents' affection. Bartley finished washing his hands and waited while his wife set the table. He shivered as he reflected on the odd visions he saw from his peripheral vision. They said their prayers before dinner. Bartley was sure to add a prayer to keep Dolly safe. May he grow big and strong and healthy. As husband and wives do, they talked about their day over dinner, but little baby Dolly continued to cry.
Maybe he's hungry,"
Bartley asked his wife.
"But I only fed him about an hour ago,"
she snapped, yet she rose and tried to let the babe suckle from her breast. Bartley turned back to his meal, enjoying his venison, when he heard his wife shriek.
"Ah! Bloody hell, he bit me!"
She popped her nipple from the child. It was bleeding badly. Bartley took baby Dolly as Matilda grabbed a rag to hold against her bosom. Bartley raised the child with inspection and brought him directly to his face. He watched as the blood dribbled down his chin. The blood that Dally surely drank. Baby Dally smiled a knowing smile.
"Oh my God,"
Bartley exclaimed.
"He's a changeling! What the hell's the matter with you?"
Matilda shouted.
"You can't tell your own child?" "Dildis, that's a demon, love. I accidentally stepped into a fairy ring out on the edge of the forest today. This is the fairies punishing us by swapping out our child,"
Bartley confessed.
"You be sounding like a fool, Bartley. Now give me that babe and go finish your meal. And no more drinking for you."
But Bartley hadn't had even one sip of ale. He finished his meal and kept a watchful eye on Dally as Matilda fed him and rocked him to sleep.
"I know what I saw. His face changed." "You saw that, did ya? At the corner of your eye, while you had a rag on your face?" "But he smiled when he drank your blood." "Smiled at his da, probably for missing ye all day. Now come on, I got a wee scratch from my tooth coming in." Maybe you're right." Of course I'm right, Bartley. Don't go believing those superstitions and stories."
Matilda chided, blowing out the candle. The action signified both that the conversation was over and it was time for bed. The next morning the McGregors woke up and it was cold. Much too cold for September. A deep frost had frozen half the fields on the farm, just weeks before the harvest. All those crops were ruined. Bartley called on his neighbors to help him harvest the rest early. They laughed in disbelief. No such frost hit their farms. When they saw Bartley's farm, they were dumbfounded. They worked together to bring in what was left of the harvest, most of which wasn't even ripe. Bartley overheard some of the other farmers talking in town.
Did you hear about the McGregors farm? Oh, poor them. They got some bad luck." "Not bad luck, but a curse,"
Bartley thought to himself.
"And I know just the one who cursed it."
Bartley came home after that long and horrible day. Matilda looked disheveled too. Little Dally was crying a fit.
"Could you take him, Bartley? He's been crying all day. I think that tooth coming in is hurting him pretty bad."
Bartley picked up the babe and stuck his finger in Dally's mouth for him to suckle. Strange. He didn't feel any teeth. Not one tooth was poking through his soft, wet gums. This solidified Bartley's horrors. This was no human child. Little baby Dally was gone. This was a changeling. The Fae are punishing him by taking his Dally and swapping it out with a monster. He knew in his heart there was only one remedy. So after everyone fell asleep, Bartley crept to the child's crib, bundled him up. He took the babe and opened the door as quietly as he could. He walked through the dead crop and moved closer to the magic wood, haunted by the Fae. In the milk light of moon, he found his way to the Fae ring and set the child in the middle of it.
"Oh God in heaven, please bring me back my child. Take this monstrosity away and bring me back Dally. Noble and ancient Fae of the wood, if you can hear me, I beg of you, please lift whatever dark magic you've put on me and mine. Take the changeling back and give me my boy."
With tears in his eyes, he crept home and sat down, exhausted at the dinner table. Exhausted from what needed to be done. He awoke with the sharp pain of a knife piercing into his chest, the tip of the blade finding his heart.
"What have you done with Dolly?"
Matilda shrieked.
It wasn't our Dolly. It was a devil,"
Bartley choked out while Matilda twisted the blade.
"You fool! You damned fool!"
Matilda said, weeping as Bartley bled out.
"There are no devils but you, and the devil you made me become."
She wailed in grief. Poor baby Dally, gone forever, abandoned and left for dead by his own father. The Fae looked to the cottage, once filled with love and now damned. She found amusement in the mortals and their feeble minds.
"I only had to whisper and lead him into the Fae ring. Their superstitions, fear, and mistrust took care of the rest,"
the old fairy said, grinning at the sweet baby. Dally was cooing and looking up at her.
"Now I have this beautiful human child, one to transform into my own."
This story was written by AllegedlyKyle. It's narrated by Derek O'Berry. The name of this story? The Tale of the Inescapable Death. The following declassified letter is a document recovered from the United States Bureau of Paranormal Events and Unidentified Occurrences, US-BPEUO. Names have been redacted and will remain anonymous for the privacy of the deceased and their family. To whom it may concern, I, redacted, am writing this as I am on hospice care with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The doctor says I only have 2 weeks left to live, but if you can believe it, I've died many times already. Many people fear the concept of death. I once did as well. At this point, I fear the concept of life more. Or at least life like this. I'm sure some of you have heard the concept of quantum immortality, but for those who haven't, essentially it means when you die, you're transported to a parallel universe of least resistance, in which you did not die at that time. For example, say you're crushed by falling debris from a construction project gone wrong. You'll find yourself in the exact situation, but this time it did not crush you. Regardless of how real the impact felt, you will notice small, indiscernible differences, such as the color of your childhood home or the name of the restaurant on the corner of the street. In the media, this is often referred to as the Mandela effect. I've come to believe that these are actually the events of quantum immortality. Immortality sounds cool, right? To never die, to live forever. Like all things in life, I've learned that it isn't as cool as it sounds. It's become a personal hell for me. The first time I believed I experienced an occurrence was when I was a young child. At the time, I was maybe 5 or 6. I was enamored with space. My room had those glow-in-the-dark stars along the ceiling, and I had a plethora of space-themed toys strewn about. One day, I became very ill with a high fever. The doctor advised my parents, as any good doctor would, Tylenol, plenty of fluids, and bed rest. My parents, following his instructions, did as such and laid me down to rest. I remember my heart racing fast, feeling chills, and sweating profusely. After staring up at my star-sprawled ceiling, I finally fell asleep. The next morning, I arose to the shock of the starry ceiling suddenly blank and gray. My rocket ship blanket was replaced with a T-Rex blanket. The toys in my toy chest were replaced with dinosaur action figures. The most surprising part of all is I no longer felt sick. I cried out to my parents to inquire what happened to all my space toys. They were delighted that I looked much better and chalked my inquisition regarding space toys to be a fever dream. I explained that I did not like dinosaurs and I would like my space-themed bedroom to return as it was. Once again, my parents figured it was just a shifting interest, as all young children frequently do. The second time I encountered quantum immortality, I was 23 years old and newly married. I was driving home from work on a wet, dark, rainy night. I just got done working a 12-hour shift and I was ready to have some supper, relax, and go to sleep. That was until I noticed a semi-truck hydroplaning on the wrong side of the road. There was little I can do, as the truck was too close to safely maneuver out of the way in time. I remember seeing the concerned look on the driver's face before the sudden, sharp, and painful feeling of twisted steel passing through my body. Except the next moment, I suddenly found myself driving on the same road, in the same place, but the truck was now safely passing on the other side of the road. I went home and noticed my wife's hair was now blonde. As long as I can remember, she was a brunette. After a slight chuckle, she informed me that she was born a brunette and had always dyed her hair blonde. She stated that I must be overexhausted and not thinking clearly. I abruptly looked through our wedding photos, and once again, she was a blonde in all of them. I logged on to Facebook and scrolled through our photos back to the day we met. Sure enough, she was blonde in all of them, too. I told my wife about the experience with the truck and she shrugged it off, saying, "I think work has been stressing you out too much. You need to take a vacation. Come, have some supper, and after that you should get some rest." I was able to sort of gaslight myself to believing her. There's no way these experiences could be real, right? I mean, if I actually died, there's no way I would still be able to interact with loved ones and carry on life as normal. It's not like there are lovely clouds and cherubs playing beautiful music as if I were in heaven, nor fire and brimstone as if I were in... well, you get the point. Fast forward years later, and I'm still happily married with 2 beautiful children, redacted, age 12 and, redacted, age 10. I started feeling a lot of pain in my abdomen, so I went to the hospital to have it checked out. Diagnosis, stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Inoperable. The doctor gave me 6 months to live with treatment. Unfortunately, the treatments didn't work and the cancer spread more rapidly than the doctors could have predicted. Suddenly, I found myself on hospice with only weeks to live and surrounded by loved ones who all came to give their goodbyes. Even with the morphine, the pain was unbearable. It felt like my body was tearing apart. I was ready to give up. After about 2 weeks, it finally became too much, and with a last gasp, I watched as everything faded to black. Except, it didn't. I once again found myself surrounded by loved ones giving their goodbyes, and in extreme pain. Thought to myself, no way did I dream all that in my lucid state. Could quantum immortality be real? I couldn't possibly dump all that information on my loved ones. So once again, I found myself weakened in unbearable pain, and everything fading to black. Once again, I woke up to the exact same scene. Same loved ones saying goodbye, same nurses watching over me, even the priest once again giving me the same last rites. I can't tell you which time this is, as I've lost count after a while. But my children are progressively getting older through each occurrence, and the seasons are changing. The calendar on the wall showing different days, then months, then years. over and over again. I get to watch my kids grow older, which may sound nice, but imagine watching your family and children progressively get older, but you can only experience it as they're grieving your inevitable death. Watching your children lose their father over and over and over again. If that wasn't enough for someone to go insane, I'm also getting older and beginning to lose my wits. One silver lining is that new memories with the family continue to trickle in my brain through each occurrence, like grains of sand falling through an infinite hourglass. I feel that inevitably dementia will set in and I will be cursed to continuously die a confused death, surrounded by people I once knew, and my fading memory will not allow me to recollect. I started writing these letters after that realization, and they're the only thing that are keeping me sane. I don't know how many letters I've written at this point. My guess is somewhere in the hundreds. The hope is that someone in a similar position will find them and feel solace knowing that they're not alone. I am hoping to one day find myself in a universe where they have a cure, and I won't be in such pain and agony anymore. At the very least, I wish there were to be an end to this road, that after a finite amount of occurrences there are no more universes for me to suffer, and I will finally get to rest. As for you, dear reader, know that quantum immortality is very real. And rather than the heaven it seems, it is an inevitable condemnation to a cyclical hell with no apparent way to escape. Sincerely, Redacted. This story is written from multiple perspectives, both Brandon and Jimbo's. I call this story The Tale of the Haunted Bridge. Brandon's perspective. This is my senior year of high school, and I'm supposed to be having the time of my life. But instead, I'm the new kid in town. My mom recently split from my dad. Since I'm now old enough to handle it, honestly, I wish it happened sooner rather than dealing with them being so miserable for so long. Now I'm in my last year of high school, filled with new bullies, no friends, and girls that won't even look twice at me. Yeah, this is my life. The bell rang for lunch. Okay, I survived the first half of the first day. Only, the whole rest of the year left. I sat at an empty table towards the back of the lunchroom, trying my best not to get noticed. Mom packed my lunch just like she always did. At least that's still the same. Peanut butter and marshmallow fluff, with some Oreos and Gushers, and my favorite drink, mango juice. As I was admiring my lunch, I heard a tray drop in front of me. I looked up, and it was a girl. No way! She looked nice. She didn't seem like the vapid party girls, but more like a girl who cared about school and her friends. Hi?
Hi, I'm Gracie. You're Brandon, right?
The puzzled look on my face silently asked a question, in which she promptly answered.
We had first period chem class together.
Whoa, before you ask, I would share my homework with you, but you'd probably fail.
I don't want your homework. I want to know if you moved into that old McLarson's place.
Old McLarson place? I don't know. My mom just moved us into that old house around the corner from Greystone Park.
Yeah, that's the old McLarson place. And do be careful in that park. That old bridge in Greybone Park is even more haunted than your house.
My house isn't haunted. Who even was McLarson? Aw man, you're the dead meat who moved into the old McLarson place, asked the big jock at the table closest to us. Looking at him, he seemed to be the leader of a group of popular kids. Oh man, I should have picked somewhere else to sit. Graceface! I knew you were a loser, but I didn't think you'd take on the new dweeb as some charity case, the jock said, laughter bursting out from the cool kids.
Oh, James, glad to see you're taking time off from flunking out of math class to come down and talk to us.
It's Jimbo, and I'm taking one of my study halls to get tutored so I can raise my grade and stay captain of the football team, so shut up. Ooze, came from the other table. Then Jimbo reached over and grabbed my Oreos. I'll be taking these as dork tax for pissing me off. Shoveling a cookie in his mouth, he turned his gaze back at Gracie. So, Graceface, did you tell the new dweeb suicide bridge is right next to his house? He looked down at me, and an evil, smug grin came across his face.
Shut up, James. I was telling him to stay away from there before you...
Oh, why? This loser doesn't look like he's scared of a little old bridge. No, I'm not afraid. I tried to sound tougher than I actually did. And the name is Brandon. James. My name is Jimbo. he said, punching my sandwich into the table. "Hey, James, tomorrow you got lunch detention," yelled a booming voice across the cafeteria. Finally, the lunch monitor started doing his job. "You're gonna pay for that, Brandy," he whispered to me while his friend snickered. "After school today, 3 p.m. at Greybones Park. You're dead." Another round of oohs came from his friends. "Great first day of school. I'm already making all the friends."
You're not going, right?
"I kinda have to. If I don't show up this time, I get ragged on for the whole year. If I go, even if I get beat up, I get credit for showing up. You know, guy code."
I'm not worried about you getting beat up. Just please stay away from that bridge. It's true what he said. A lot of people die jumping off that bridge. They always write it off as suicide, but everyone knows deep down there's something evil going on. If you're smart, you'd stay away from that bridge.
The rest of the day went on as well as it could. Jimbo body checked me in the hallway, twice, his howling buddies guffawing behind him. After school, I walked to my house, taking a deep breath to calm my nerves. I began to walk to Greystone Park. I figured it's best to just get this over with. Jimbo's perspective. Me and the guys were all waiting for the new kid. Everybody except Travis. He might have had a date, but deep down, I think it's because he's scared of that old rundown park and that stupid bridge. God, they've been claiming that stupid bridge has been haunted since forever, just because a couple of heartbroken, stupid high school kids jump off of it every year. Such a stupid story for stupid babies. Besides, I'm going to beat up that new kid under the bridge. I smiled at the thought. My boys around me amped me up. "Yeah, that new guy's gonna get it." And, "Oh man, another victim for Jimbo." "Geez, he's gonna get messed up on the first day. That's gotta be some kind of record." His lunch didn't look half bad either. I figured I'd keep stealing his lunch after I messed him up today. And over the hill I saw him. Wow, he actually showed up. Gotta admit, he's got guts. A little bit further behind him I saw a girl on a bike. Ugh, Grace is here too? Oh boy, looks like we get to beat up the new kid in front of his girlfriend. For a split second I got a little sad knowing that there were never any girls that liked me like that. I pushed that thought aside and stared down Brandon. "Hey, new guy, hope you're ready to get mashed up on your first day." Chuckles erupt from the kids behind me. "Oh, and you brought your girlfriend too."
I'm not his girlfriend. Oh, whatever. I just wanted to make sure he was okay.
"Oh, Jimmy boy, fighting me would be no sweat for you," Brandon said. The other kids started laughing as my face turned bright red. "Yeah, I know. That's why it'll be fun." A devious smile crept over Brandon's face. "Well, I want to win something. First, let's have a race. I'm pretty fast, and I set the record for the 100-meter dash at my old school." "You're not faster than me," I shouted, getting angrier by the moment. "Prove it. A race from one end of the bridge to the other." My buddies behind me got real quiet, and I saw the fear in their eyes. "What? That's not part of the fight. I'll race you down here under the bridge." "Aw, man, you guys didn't tell me Jimmy boy here was scared of a little old bridge," Brandon said mockingly. "You know what? I'm just gonna go ahead and go home and say that I won this round," Brandon smugly yelled at the group. "No way, loser! I'll race you, but we're fighting on the other side of that bridge." Brandon's perspective. "Well, I'm all out of ideas. With how Gracie and everyone got worked up about the bridge, I thought for sure this would have diffused the fight."
Stop, you guys. This is so stupid. Fighting is one thing, but this is just messed up.
"Shut up, Graceface! This new nerd is dead after a stupid race." One of Jimbo's friends said something about leaving, and the rest of his friends decided to join. "Oh, come on, guys, it's just a stupid bridge," Jimbo shouted as their car drove away, turning back to me with hate in his eyes. "That's it. You're gonna die, newbie." Jimbo's perspective. The rage outweighed the fear. I was seeing red and not thinking straight. I just knew this kid was gonna get beaten to a pulp, and if I had to win a stupid race on a bridge, haunted or not, this kid is going to get it. Besides, I'm literally running as fast as I can over the dumb bridge in broad daylight. How bad could it be? We both took our marks at the one end of the bridge. If we were racing, I was going to be the one to count it down. On your mark, get set. I started running just a second or two before I yelled, "Go!" The crunch from the dirt road turned into a rubbery noise that echoed as my sneakers slapped against the old wooden bridge. I was halfway across the bridge before I noticed I was alone. I looked back and Brandon was gone. I knew it. Baby probably got too chicken and ran off. I turned around and ran back to the beginning of the bridge. When my foot hit the gravel road, that's when something strange happened. My foot didn't hit the dirt. Instead, it landed on another wooden piece of the bridge. Except now I was on the other side of the bridge, and the side that I was running to looked even further away. I looked around confused, and sure enough, I really was on the other end of the bridge, the side where the race was supposed to finish. Silence filled the air, and my heart started beating so fast, I heard my pulse in my ears. I ran towards the race's finish line on this side, and just ended up on the other side of the bridge. Something is wrong. I can't get off the bridge. I tried over and over and over, and there was just no escape. I looked over the edge. The 50-foot drop didn't look too bad. Along the side of the bridge, the ground even raised nearly 30 feet away. There were some bushes over there, too. I know other people died on this bridge, but I'm pretty tough. I think I can make it. I saw the spot I was aiming for in the bushes, and Brandon's perspective. Nobody could believe it. Sure, James was an asshole and picked on me for being the new kid, but he didn't deserve to die. Grace and I saw him start to cross the bridge. He went from a full run and immediately slowed down to a walk. It looked like there was tears in his eyes. He calmly walked to the center of the bridge, and then to the edge. I had to turn. I couldn't watch anymore. Grace hopped on her bike as I ran behind her. Grace was white as a ghost. I didn't think he would do that. I didn't think it was real, I thought to myself. I began to cry softly too. I just never seen anything like that before. I ran as hard as I could, despite the cold tears stinging my eyes. My heart skipped a beat and my body jolted as I heard a dull thud behind us. Some lady in the park started to scream. I'll never forget that day. No matter how long I live, I'll never forget it. Suicide is what the cops said. School took a day to let the students talk with counselors. Deep down, I don't think anyone thought he was suicidal. Grace tried to even tell them to tear down that old bridge. Me and Grace, we don't talk anymore. It's too weird. Every time we see each other, we look away. The trauma of that day is just too much to cope with. And I think that we just remind each other of it. She tried real hard to get him to tear down that bridge, but nobody ever listened to her. The Tale of the Missing Bride. Get your hands on your head and get down on the ground! A voice boomed, shocking me out of my blackout state, cutting through to my very foggy brain. The police were flooding into my house as I continued to come to consciousness. My head was pounding and I couldn't remember anything. I saw my bottle of whiskey and thought, damn it, this time I completely blew it. I gotta stop drinking. Which seems to be a problem, I said, perched on a stool, slurring my words horribly. God, how much did I drink? I looked around, and even in my state of stupor, I could see the blood splatter on the walls, a puddle of blood on the kitchen floor mere feet away from me, and marks in the blood, marks from something getting dragged into the basement. I said get on the fucking ground, scumbag! One of the police officers bellowed, putting some bass into his shaky voice. I don't know if it was to scare me or help himself feel less scared. It didn't matter. Either way, I got to the ground. Hands behind your back! You have the right— The voice droned off as I thought to myself, wow, it's just like in all those movies and stupid detective shows. You know the ones, where at the end of the show they tie a nice bow around the whole case and catch their perp and read them. Damn, what were the name of those rights? I think it's a lady's name. Meredith rights? No. Miranda rights. Yeah, that's it. My drunk brain was ruminating on the dumbest thoughts, while here I was handcuffed, manhandled, and read my Miranda rights. Fuck, Don. Fuck, Don. What did you do this time? I know I can drink a bit. Well, quite frankly, I drink a bit too much. And I know when I do, I can get into a rage. Sure, I've smacked around my wife a bit when I get like that, but I always apologize. And Susan always takes me back, especially after telling her, this was it. The last time. I'm gonna quit drinking and never hurt you again. I promise. How long did those promises last? A week, maybe 2, until Randy wanted to go to the bar to watch the game, or I'd sneak just a few beers out in the garage. Then I'd be back at it,
breaking out the whiskey and fighting with my wife again in no time. Damn that whiskey. It was always the booze that did it. I stepped outside to the cool air. Lights from atop the cop cars illuminated every house in the damn block. Of course, all those nosy fucking neighbors had to be huddled in their yards, holding their families close like they were watching some after-school special. Here I am getting pushed into the back of a cop car. Don't drink, kids, and don't hit your wives, hubbies, or this is what you'll get. My brain snapped back into the moment. This wasn't a TV show, not an episode from the latest dramatic detective series, nor an after-school special that had a serious message. This is real life, and I'm horrified. All that blood. Jesus Christ, what did I do? There were dozens of patrol cops and detectives scurrying about inside and out of my house, having conversations, snapping pictures, debating over evidence, and jotting down notes. Down at the station, they had to have put me in the brightest room. The hum from the white fluorescent tubes was sobering. Look, Donald, what can I do to make you feel more comfortable? You want a smoke? Maybe some food or water? The detective said to me. Maybe your attorney. Don, you're definitely going to need counsel. Why? What the hell's going on? Finally, after an hour of waiting on site and another hour getting processed, I was a bit more clear-headed. Neighbors called us, Don, saying it sounded like you and your wife were having a very heated conversation. They said they heard some banging around, then a thud, screams, and then silence. They were so scared, Don. They called us up to do a wellness check on Susan. They heard fighting coming from your house before, but nothing like this. His calm, non-judgmental tone sounded kind, but I knew deep down he wanted to act like my buddy so I can feel comfortable around him and confess. But to what? A fight with my wife? So? Just bring Susan in here and she'll explain everything. Sometimes I get a little out of line, but I love her so much and she knows that. My voice was hollow, almost as if I didn't fully believe what I was saying. Well, yeah, see, that's the problem, Don. We believe your wife is dead. I felt the blood drain from my head and face, dropping right into my stomach and raking me with nausea. Dead? Dead? I could barely utter the word. No, there has to be some kind of mistake. I felt my emotions welling into tears, burning the back of my eyes, waiting to erupt. This can't be happening, I mumbled to myself. This has to be a bad dream. I'll wake up any minute now. Don, listen. I get it. Things can get a bit heated sometimes, and accidents happen. But I need you to tell me where her body is. Can you do that for me, Don? What? No, I don't know where the body is. A spark of hope filled me for just a moment. Maybe there is no body. Maybe she's still alive. Donald, we have her blood all over your kitchen. A bloody knife with your prints on it. You're covered in her blood, for Christ's sakes. If that wasn't enough, we have the footage from your kitchen camera. Footage of you chasing down and fatally stabbing Susan. His eyes moved to the pile of paperwork in front of him. There it was. A picture of me, clear as day, from the home security camera in my kitchen. The camera I had completely forgotten about. I really need to quit drinking. Well, now I have to quit, seeing how I'm going to jail and all. Jesus. I'm being told my wife is dead and I'm the one who killed her and I'm still only thinking about myself. Just tell us where her body is, Donald, and we can wrap this up. Her family deserves closure and a proper chance to pay their respects. Who knows? Maybe I can get you some leniency in your sentencing. You don't want the death penalty. I forgot Nevada still used the death penalty. How archaic. I swear to you, I don't remember anything, I shouted, my brain spiraling with all this new information. God damn it, Don. If that's the way you're going to play this, then I'll make sure you fry. There he was, the real detective, sitting under there, hiding behind a calm demeanor. Deep down, he wanted to unload on me, tear me down, scream at me, make me feel like an animal, then kill me. Legally. No, this isn't happening. I whimpered into the bright interrogation room.
Convicted murderer Donald Echoes gets sentenced to death on Valentine's Day for the brutal slaying of his wife, the newspaper read. Susan Echoes shook open the paper to continue reading the article inside. As a phlebotomist, she collected her own blood and stored it at work. Plus, making that AI video of Don killing her in the kitchen. That was all she needed to be rid of her husband. Donald the scumbag who couldn't control himself when he started drinking. Donald the monster who'd punched holes in the walls, kicked the dog and cat's piece of shit even hit her too. But not anymore. Tears came to her eyes. Was she sad for the Donald she used to know? Was she relieved that it was finally over? She quickly wiped her tears away. Susan would cry. Susan would hurt deep down. But Julie? Julie would never. Her life as Susan was over. Susan was weak. Susan had to die so Julie could be free. Julie, the alias she picked so long ago. Julie had an entire backstory and paperwork to back it up. On paper, Julie was Susan's cousin. Susan's will left Julie everything. Donald's life insurance, too. Julie was free. Julie had won.